Now, Fizi, the beautiful.
We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear.
Progressive People's Party.
We believe in proper health care that goes beyond infrastructure and emphasizes on the care provided by our healthcare workers by providing adequate and continuous training, investing in the people, providing affordable and accessible healthcare for all regions, and emergency care throughout the country to save lives. Beyond this, we believe in preventative healthcare through cleaner environments and sanitation. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992. We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. We believe in proper health care that goes beyond infrastructure and emphasizes on the care provided by our healthcare workers by providing adequate and continuous training, investing in the people, providing affordable and accessible healthcare for all regions, and emergency care throughout the country to save lives. Beyond this, we believe in preventative healthcare through cleaner environments and sanitation. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. Women, if we don't sit at the table, then we are served on the table to be eaten, or we are a utensil on the table to be used by those at the table. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different. As humans, we possess an innate desire to feel accepted by our peers. It is always easier to side with the majority, to avoid standing out, right? But change doesn't happen while we are sticking to the usual. It happens when we act on our inner voice, despite the roars shouting us down. Change occurs when we speak up and dare to disrupt. We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. Women, if we don't sit at the table, then we are served on the table to be eaten, or we are a utensil on the table to be used by those at the table. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. It is time for a new kind of leadership that leads with compassion and understanding. Our current voting population is predominantly women too. According to the recent completed voters register, more women need to get into decision-making and leadership in all sectors. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. We believe in proper health care that goes beyond infrastructure and emphasizes on the care provided by our healthcare workers by providing adequate and continuous training, investing in the people, providing affordable and accessible healthcare for all regions, and emergency care throughout the country to save lives. Beyond this, we believe in preventative healthcare through cleaner environments and sanitation. Our governments will serve the people and they will be accessible to the people, giving them power to elect their own DCEs and MMDCs. We believe in the power of education, not as we see it being played out today, and where free SHS and the quality is judged by the number of students in school or one hot meal a day, but also the policy of FQ will be implemented from kindergarten to senior high school, particularly the compulsory part. No child should be left behind. The world is hurtling towards digitization, creativity, and innovation. We must not stagnate. As humans, we possess an innate desire to feel accepted by our peers. It is always easier to side with the majority, to avoid standing out, right? But change doesn't happen while we are sticking to the usual. It happens when we act on our inner voice, despite the roars shouting us down. Change occurs when we speak up and dare to disrupt. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992. Women, if we don't sit at the table, then we are served on the table to be eaten, or we are a utensil on the table to be used by those at the table. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. We believe in proper health care that goes beyond infrastructure and emphasizes on the care provided by our healthcare workers by providing adequate and continuous training, investing in the people, providing affordable and accessible healthcare for all regions, and emergency care throughout the country to save lives. Beyond this, we believe in preventative healthcare through cleaner environments and sanitation. Our governments will serve the people and they will be accessible to the people, giving them power to elect their own DCEs and MMDCs. We believe in the power of education, not as we see it being played out today, and where free SHS and the quality is judged by the number of students in school or one hot meal a day, but also the policy of FQ will be implemented from kindergarten to senior high school, particularly the compulsory part. No child should be left behind. The world is hurtling towards digitization, creativity, and innovation. We must not stagnate. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992. We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear. As humans, we possess an innate desire to feel accepted by our peers. It is always easier to side with the majority, to avoid standing out, right? But change doesn't happen while we are sticking to the usual. It happens when we act on our inner voice, despite the roars shouting us down. Change occurs when we speak up and dare to disrupt. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. It is time for a new kind of leadership that leads with compassion and understanding. Our current voting population is predominantly women too, according to the recent completed voters register. More women need to get into decision-making and leadership in all sectors. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table.
As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, then you are on the table. I think that is quite an inspiring piece of speech coming from Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku, the flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party. Welcome to Brigette. As I mentioned, this is a program to bring the PPP's presidential candidate, Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku, close to you so you can ask her all the questions you would want to ask. Several people have put in questions since yesterday, and in due course, we're going to be having Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku join us on this feed to answer the many questions that you have been posing at her. We had a request yesterday from our viewers to bring excerpts of the speech she delivered on the day she picked up her nomination forms to become to contest to become the presidential candidate or the flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, and that is what we have been bringing to you. I know most of you are enjoying it, so we'll go back to listen to a few things she had to say. And I think one which caught me is this.
We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992.
We are ruled by fear. We have a constitution which places so much power in the hands of the executive president of Ghana. So everybody seems to toe the line of the executive president. People are not ready to put their heads on the line for this country because they know when they fall on the wrong side of the ruling administration or its apparatchiks or its elements, then they are going to find themselves in deep water. So instead of Ghana bringing on board all of its intelligences, we usually have a few people who are convinced beyond redemption that they are doing the right things, take over the reins of administration of the country, and all they do is what their limited minds tell them. I remember back then, some time ago, when we used to work in the public enterprises, the fear of leadership was so strong that even when people saw leaders doing the wrong things, nobody dared raise a voice. People would rather keep quiet, let leaders do the wrong things, even though in their own minds, in the mind of the leader, he would think that he's doing the right thing, until we have wrong results, which has led to the collapse of so many companies in Ghana. Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is calling on Ghana that nobody has all the intelligence required to grow Ghana. The Constitution established institutions of state and gave them specific instructions and specific roles to play in the development of Ghana. When the country elects a president, the president doesn't become an all-knowing person. His cabinet does not become all-knowing. Neither does his party, the party which brought him into the presidency, become an all-knowing entity. For Ghana to progress, Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is saying that we need to unleash the creative capacities of every Ghanaian so that with all hands on deck, we can move the development of Ghana at a far faster pace than we have been having it. We live in fear. I mentioned yesterday that if you compare the Ghanaian to the Nigerian, if you compare the Ghanaian to the Liberian, if you compare the Ghanaian to the Sierra Leonean, nobody will tell you that there's too much fear in the heart of the Ghanaian. And this is a construct of our history. We are ruled by fear. Must we continue to be ruled by fear?
We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear.
We are ruled by fear. Do you agree or not agree to what Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku, flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, is saying to Ghana? I remember during the era of Dumso, when the executive president of Ghana then took a decision to move the managing director of the electricity company of Ghana from the ECG and put him at the Ministry of Energy. The entire process was such a slap on the intentions of the Constitution of Ghana. The ECG managing director was appointed through a process, and the Constitution made room for how he should be removed from office. But unfortunately, because we are ruled by fear, you had executive dictatorship taking over this country. So you had people who had no experience whatsoever in the management of electricity taking over the running of electricity of an entire country. They believed they were doing the right thing, but the truth is that they weren't. Are we ruled by fear? Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is the flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, and she says that for Ghana to attain the rate of development which we deserve, looking at the kind of resources we have, the human resources, our location in West Africa, just a couple of hours flight from the major markets of the world, having access to the Atlantic Ocean, our rivers, generating electricity from rivers and not from nuclear or coal or anything. She believes that Ghana should enjoy a better rate of development. But fear cannot make Ghana do the right things. When subordinates in workplaces are afraid of pointing out the wrong things to their superiors because they fear there will be retribution, then there's no way Ghana is going to develop at the rate that other countries have developed, for which we look up to the Asian tigers, wishing that we could have our development that way. Look at our history. Almost any major company which could have been a flag bearer in Africa for the capacity or the ability of the black man to manage his own affairs, we have run almost all of those companies down. And what Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is saying is that it is because of a culture of fear. A culture that sees right but will not talk right. A culture that seeks to belong to the majority instead of standing out and being counted, no matter the cost. So it doesn't matter how many political parties we change. It doesn't matter how many presidents we change. If we do not have a leadership which is going to make Ghanaians feel free enough to bring on board their unique intelligences to the art and the science of nation building, Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is saying that development and progress is going to elude Ghana. Ghana is blessed. Ghana has some of the best weather in the world. Ghana is blessed with mineral resources. Ghana is blessed with a human resource which is eager to learn. And I remember the story about how when the Yakusomo Dam was being constructed, the Italian constructor was so impressed with the output of the Ghanaian. So much so that even the time that was required for the project to be completed, the project was completed before the scheduled period. That is how talented the Ghanaian is. There's nothing you can hide from him. There's nothing that if he puts his mind to, he wouldn't be able to do. But why are we having so many failures in the running of enterprises? Why do we have projects? We have road projects, just as we are having now so many road projects coming up. But the question everybody asks when they see these projects is, how long are these projects going to last? On a major highway like the N6, on a major motorway, which is the motorway of the highway or the Tema Accra motorway, you put on street lights. You put street lights on the roads, and they barely give us light for a month, and they become white elephants. Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is saying that some decisions have been taken in the past, and those decisions, Ghanaians, intelligent Ghanaians knew were bad decisions. But because of fear, nobody dared raise a voice. So continuously we invest our resources into correcting the problems we create. She says we live in fear, and there can be very little progress if that spirit of fear is not done away with intelligent leadership. All the roads which are being constructed, the schools which are being built, the street lights which are being put on our roads, in our communities, the hospitals which are to be built, the massive infrastructure. If we do not take away the spirit of fear, we shall continue recycling our resources and correcting the problems we create. No person
There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992.
My apologies to all of you. A break in our internet connectivity has caused our stream to go down for a couple of seconds. Kindly accept my apologies. I was talking about the fact that Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku has done an in-depth analysis of our national problems, and she says that she believes that our fear, the fear we have in this country, is contributing to the lack of active progress we wish to experience. It's not about how much money we borrow from other economies. It's not about how many people we bring in from elsewhere to come and help us do the things we can do by ourselves. But if you don't put the right people at the right places to do the right jobs the right way, then Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku, fact bearer of the Progressive People's Party, is saying that the spirit of fear which rules this country is never going to let Ghana enjoy the fruits of our labor.
We believe in proper health. We believe in proper health care that goes beyond infrastructure and emphasizes on the care provided by our healthcare workers by providing adequate and continuous training, investing in the people, providing affordable and accessible healthcare for all regions, and emergency care throughout the country to save lives. Beyond this, we believe in preventative healthcare through cleaner environments and sanitation. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other and done it the same way and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. It is time for a new kind of leadership that leads with compassion and understanding. Our current voting population is predominantly women too, according to the recent completed voters register. More women need to get into decision-making and leadership in all sectors. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table. Women, if we don't sit at the table, then we are served on the table to be eaten, or we are a utensil on the table to be used by those at the table. Our governments will serve the people and they will be accessible to the people, giving them power to elect their own DCEs and MMDCs. We believe in the power of education, not as we see it being played out today, and where free SHS and the quality is judged by the number of students in school or one hot meal a day, but also the policy of FQ will be implemented from kindergarten to senior high school, particularly the compulsory part. No child should be left behind. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market. As humans, we possess an innate desire to feel accepted by our peers. It is always easier to side with the majority, to avoid standing out, right? But change doesn't happen while we are sticking to the usual. It happens when we act on our inner voice, despite the roars shouting us down. Change occurs when we speak up and dare to disrupt. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. It is time for a new kind of leadership that leads with compassion and understanding. Our current voting population is predominantly women too. According to the recent completed voters register, more women need to get into decision-making and leadership in all sectors. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table.
As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table. If you are not part of the decision making, you are going to be part of the victims, the victimhood. So why don't you come on the table and be part of the decision process? Why do you sit on the sides and just complain things are not working well when we are all looking for solutions to problems? Why do you join the crowd when you know very well that the crowd is not going to lead you to the place you wish to be? Why don't you live in the fulfillment of your own idiosyncrasies, what your mind is telling you to be true? Why do you wish to be with the crowd? Why do we continue doing the same things over and over and over again and expect to have different results? It has become the order now. Go to elections, have a couple of fights here and there in constituencies. You don't hear of this in places where there are jobs for people to do, because nobody's going to leave his job to come have a fisticuff with somebody else. But that has been our normal. Unfortunately, we are accepting that normal as what could be best, which shouldn't be the situation. So Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku, flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party for the 2020 election, is saying that we should stop talking about fear and stop looking at what God has invested in us. And all of us should bring our shoulders to the wheel. We should stop talking negativity about each other. I don't want to bring the Ghanaian down, but it has become folklore that the Ghanaian is used to pulling his own down. The Ghanaian is upset when his fellow Ghanaian is doing well. That is the folklore out there. People talk about Nigerians and say Nigerians celebrate their own. When a Nigerian sees a fellow Nigerian riding a big car, a good car, which he has earned, he goes and like, Oga, God bless you. Oga, pray for me that me too, I'll be like you. But when a Ghanaian sees a Ghanaian doing well, he's upset. When we were younger, we heard the story of a goalkeeper of one of the football teams in Ghana who I was told was also playing for the national team, called Robert Mensah. And we were taught this song that Robert Mensah was goalkeeper number one, a very good goalkeeper whom we heard so many stories about. Robert was so good that he was to be one of the few Ghanaians at that time who was to enjoy playing with the best in the world outside of Ghana, elsewhere in Europe. The story goes that Robert Mensah, for his exploits, the good name that he was making as a goalkeeper, apparently some had taken notice of that and were not happy with Robert Mensah. So a fight broke out between two people in his community at Tema in Ghana. Robert Mensah, who was there, tried to go in there to separate these two people who were having a fight. And as we say in Twi, or Patafo, Ejiaba, Robert Mensah, who was going to be a peacemaker, was stabbed by one of the people involved in that fight. And he passed on. Ghana lost a great goalkeeper. Ghana lost a footballer who could have won us continental laurels and carried the name of Ghana across the world. In 1990, Ghanaians were cheering in Kono of Cameroon, forgetting that we ourselves, one of our own, had taken down Robert Mensah simply because he was doing well. Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku, flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, is saying that that culture of fear that makes us so afraid of the success of other Ghanaians must be done away with. And we need leadership which is not going to perpetuate this culture of fear, but we need leadership which is going to stand up and do the right things. Let bygones be bygones. Let people forget our petty squabbles and petty fightings and look at the big picture. That is the message of Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku, flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, PPP. And that is why she's inviting all of us on board. We have had enough. Enough of bitterness, enough of the pull him down syndrome, enough of the destruction of neighbor, enough of the blackmail. I grew up in a community in Kumasi and I heard so many things when I was growing up about successful people. People would not celebrate success. If you saw a story building, there was always a story around it of the people either being drug pushers or engaging in ritual money. In the mind of the poor person, riches are an unattainable feat. And through that, young children growing up were not encouraged to aspire to fruitfulness. But people were fed stories to believe that wealth could not be acquired the right way, that it was normal to be poor all your life. And unfortunately, this entered our religions, and poverty became virtue for us. Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku is saying that that is a false truth. God has blessed our country, Ghana. Even the weather Ghana enjoys, the weather is just the perfect weather. You go to other places and you mention the temperature in Ghana, and they're like, that looks like paradise. That should be paradise. I say, yeah, that is paradise. But because of the culture of fear, Ghanaians are not able to work together as team, even within political parties, in the same offices, in the same churches, in the same mosque. You see character assassination being the order of the day for most Ghanaians. Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku says that we require leadership which is going to reset our minds and our thinking. Our thought patterns require reset so that we can aspire to what other countries have been able to achieve within such a short time. There's no way we can have the level of development of other countries if we let antagonism and bad blood continue to flow in our body politic. The flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party, Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku, says that Ghanaians should say enough is enough. It is time we step up on our game. There are so many opportunities available to us, and we don't need to waste this blessing that God has given us. I have Ms. Brigette Dzogbenuku in the studio now. She'll be joining us. As I mentioned, this is a session just to get to know who she is. On Saturday, God willing, the Progressive People's Party will be delivering to Ghana its policy objectives. And as I've mentioned, I have seen people throw in the word manifesto around, and people don't even understand what a manifesto is supposed to be. Unfortunately, that is Ghana for you. The wrong thing gets propagated year after year, and it gets copied. And when I was growing up, we used to call fried rice. No, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I know you know I'm American. I'm not going there. But we have a penchant for copying the wrong things no more. Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku says that we require a shift. And that shift requires that we change the players. The players in their own minds think they are doing so well, but the truth is that they are not. Every player on the field of play thinks he is delivering to the best of his abilities, but it might be playing something which does not gel into their team's psychology and the team's aspirations. It is for you, the Ghanaian, to come and tell the person on the field that, Lud, this is not what I voted for you to do. I didn't vote for you to go running around the world looking for loans. No, I voted for you to unleash the creative capacity of the Ghanaian so that he can make positive contributions to the Ghana economy. When we do it our own way, when we have a problem, we can solve it our own selves. But when we keep running around, because we cannot do it, we assume that other people cannot do it. Then every time we are going to be shipping our best resources outside to elsewhere, even for the most menial of things which require to be done. I have joined the PPP team. I have joined this agenda for positive change. I invite you to also join this agenda so that even though we have not enjoyed the best in our time as young people, our children and our grandchildren will have the opportunity to enjoy respectable lives as Ghanaians. Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku will be joining us soon. Let us take a listen to what she has been saying in the past few weeks.
We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other and done it the same way and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. It is time for a new kind of leadership that leads with compassion and understanding. Our current voting population is predominantly women too. According to the recent completed voters register, more women need to get into decision-making and leadership in all sectors. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992. We believe in jobs. By improving Ghana's business climate and encouraging investments, we will encourage job creation so that Ghanaians can remain at home and help develop the country and its economy. We will provide support to Ghanaian industry and our farmers and fishermen using low-interest loans, technical assistance, tax incentives, and priority access to the Ghanaian market.
Hello.
Hi. I'm sure you can hear
Welcome
me.
to Bridge It.
Thank you very much.
Ah,
Thank you.
we have been waiting for a long time to have you around to speak to a lot of questions put to us concerning who Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku is. But our understanding was that you have been so busy attending to so many media interviews. What is happening, Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku?
Well, as comes with the territory. I mean, after I was acclaimed on Saturday, I had to respond to a lot of the media invitations. So all day yesterday, that's what I was doing, and uh, a bit of today too. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Well, let's zoom straight to action then. There are questions about yourself. Who is Brigette Dzogbenuku? And before you go into who you are, I would want to ask, what is the meaning of Dzogbenuku? Because we know that other names have powerful meanings. What is the meaning of Dzogbenuku?
It's one word. It's Dzogbenuku. Well, probably two words, but if you want to explain it, but the name itself is one Dzogbenuku, and it means a seed in the Sahara, or a seed in the north, or a seed in the desert, if you like. It's seed in the desert.
Okay.
So it's a resilient seed. My probably great grandfather was a child born after several were lost. So when he was born, he was nicknamed Dzogbenuku, a seed in the Sahara, which had the likelihood to survive or die. So another interpretation for Dzogbenuku would be survivor. He's a survivor. Dzogbenuku, if it survives, then it's resilient. So it's
I realize that the Joe. I've seen how you mentioned the name of the palm oil product you deal with. What is the name?
Jomi.
It's Jome. Jome.
Jomi.
And I'm here.
Jomi.
Zome.
Jomi. Jomi.
Jome. Okay. That the
I
DZO.
Jomi. Ami Jomi.
I'm Jome. All right. All right. Forgive this American. All right. So it's Jome. So I've been wondering, does the DZO in your name have anything to do with that in Jome? Because we are talking about palm here.
Yes, but there's no mention of palm in Jomi. Jo means
Okay.
fire.
Fire.
And
Okay.
and actually my brothers are nicknamed Fire because the classmates that gave him that nickname thought the Jo in Dzogbenuku is fire as well.
Fire.
But
Wow.
well, there is heat. Dzogbe is a place of heat. Dzogbe is a place of heat, as opposed to a cool place. So Dzogbe is literally means a place of heat, which is north, or Sahara. But the Jo in Jomi, the literal meaning of Jomi is fired oil that has been fired. When you taste real typical Jomi, it has a smoky flavor, so that's what it means by Jomi, fired oil. But Jogbe is more like north seed, so it's a northern seed.
Beautiful. I think you've taken us into a few lessons about names in Ghana, and those watching will be quite excited getting to know these things. Where were you born?
I was actually born in the UK, in a place called Hendon, Edgware General Hospital. But
Have you been
I was
there since you grew up?
Oh yes, I have. You mean to the hospital or to
Yeah,
Hendon?
to the
No, I
hospital. Yeah,
haven't.
to the hospital.
No, I haven't been to Edgeware General Hospital. I should actually. But no, no.
Well,
I've driven
I
past
tell my
it.
son.
I drove past it and I pointed out to someone, like, "Oh, that's where I was born." But yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
told
go.
my son he comes from Osu because that's where he was born. So you. So
Yeah.
how old were you when you moved back to Ghana?
I think I was 3. My dad was in the army and he was there as a military attaché. So that was where I was born. In well, if you like to know, 1969, a long time ago. um, yeah. So we came back in 1972. I was told. I have vague. I have fleet. Well, hazy memories of those days, but no. I I I just know that we came back in 1972, and we came back and went to Takrady from the UK. Mm.
Where at Takrady were you staying?
In my own barracks, but that was when I was 3. So we did want my own barracks twice. My dad was a career soldier, so he actually started from the least as a boys company soldier and rose through the ranks and retired a brigadier. So this was, I think, when he was a captain or a major. So we came back and we went to my own barracks. And I think we were there for just about a year. And then we moved to Kamina Barracks, Tamale. And that was where I started nursery school, in Kamina Barracks. And I did a little bit of nursery there. I did just a year of nursery there. And then I had to move. Then we moved to Burma Camp. And when we moved to Burma Camp, I keep saying to people, we live next door to Kwame Sefakaing of Peace FM, and us were
Wow.
neighbors. So we lived next door to each other. So I've known Kwame Sefakaing since I was about 5 or 6. Actually, I lie. Yes, yeah, from about 5 or 6. And so I did two primary. So I did 2 primary schools for class 1, because the first primary school I did was far from home. It was in Arakan Barracks. And if you know Burma Camp, well, Arakan Barracks is in the back. And I had to walk home from school from there. And come to think of it now, I don't know why it would take me hours to get home, because when I drive it, it doesn't take me that long. But I remember one day I got home, even though we closed at 1:30, I got home and it was almost 4. So
Mhm.
my father said, "No, we can't continue like this. What were you doing?" And I felt, well, I was walking home and I walked home. I'm sure I stopped it to play along the road somewhere. So he changed my school and I went to Burma Camp Primary. It used to be Complex Primary. I don't know why they called it Complex then. So I went there and I did second and third term from there. And then they moved us again. My father was moved again back to Takrady, but this time to head the 2nd Battalion. So then I went there in class 2, class 3, class 4 of services primary. Well, that school used to call it stage. So it was stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. And then we were moved back to Burma Camp. And I
Mm.
went to Kozuka Primary School. No, it was good because you got to know parts of Ghana, different people, picked up languages, made friends. So I have many, 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 many classmates because I went to many schools. So I came to Kozuka Primary, I did class 5 and class 6, and then went to Wesley Girls High School. And I did Wesley Girls High School Form 1. And then in Form 2, my father had to go on a course in the US. So I went to the US and did 9th grade. I was actually supposed to be in 8th grade, but I'll tell you what, Ghana's standards were so high that when I went and they assessed me, they put me in 9th grade instead of 8th grade. So I was actually one of the youngest in my class in the year. And that should tell you the kind of education we have had, you know. So they put me in 9th grade and I did 9th. So I did 9th grade in the US in a place called Carlisle where the Army War College is. And then I came back to Wesley Girls and went on to Form 3. So I missed Form 2. I went to Form 3 and finished sixth form in Wesley Girls High School. And I went to University of Ghana. I studied languages. I did Swahili and French. I went on my year abroad in Tanzania, which I loved immensely. It was such an eye opener, and made friends there. Then I started working. I did my national service in ELF, and then started working in SC Johnson. I worked a couple of years in SC Johnson, and this was me thinking I could do it on my own. I've learned enough. So I left, I went out on my own and started an events company, which went quite well. What I enjoyed about that was it gave me the opportunity to meet all kinds of people. I remember one of the events I organized was for the veterans. I mean, soldier girls. So was for veterans, but it was an international conference for veterans. So you met veterans from all the other countries. So it was very interesting. I did events for the poultry farmers. I did events for car companies. Peugeot, I drove a Peugeot myself. Well, I didn't mention Miss Ghana, but it doesn't matter. It was in second year.
No, we are going to go back because you have taken us on quite a fast spread from Birmingham through Wesley Girls High School. That was fast. I mean, you talked about Kwame Sefakai, but you didn't tell us.
Thank God. I'm going to lose. I think I'm running out of battery. Oh my goodness! Just give me a few. I'll dial back in.
No problem. We're going to sort this thing out. So, Brigette will be with us very soon. I think I'm enjoying the conversation, aside the fact that she's taking us on quite a speed walk through her life. We'll have to go back to when she and Kwame Sefakai were neighbors and get to know a little more about Kwame Sefakai. I am interested in, in knowing about who the Chairman General was. Was he a good neighbor? Was he not a good neighbor? I mean, let's get light about this. And then we'll go to Wesley Girls High School. And this is a Prempeh College boy interviewing a Wesley Girls High School lady. So please, nobody should say anything funny in the background. Let's listen to what Brigette Dzogbenuku had to say a few weeks ago when she picked up nomination to contest for flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party. This one is what excites me.
We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear. For close to 28 years, we have voted one way or other, and done it the same way, and yet expect to see different results. So until we change the players, the game won't change. It is time for a new kind of leadership that leads with compassion and understanding. Our current voting population is predominantly women too. According to the recent completed voters register, more women need to get into decision-making and leadership in all sectors. As the saying goes, if you are not at the table, you are on the table. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. As humans, we possess an innate desire to feel accepted by our peers. It is always easier to side with the majority, to avoid standing out, right? But change doesn't happen while we are sticking to the usual. It happens when we act on our inner voice, despite the roars shouting us down. Change occurs when we speak up and dare to disrupt. We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear. There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992.
Hello, Brigette.
Hi, I don't particularly like watching myself, but hey.
But was that you?
It would seem.
We'll come to your speeches, but I think we're trying to understand who you are and what your experiences have been like so far. You've taken us on a journey through how you were born in the UK because your daddy, a career soldier, was on duty in the UK. How you have had to come back and stay in different towns in Ghana, Takoradi, Tamale, Accra, then doing Takoradi again before coming back to Accra, changing schools because your daddy's career, making so many friends because everywhere you went, I remembered Brigette. I'm told you are an athlete. As a matter of fact, when you were outdoored, I had a call from a friend from church, ICGC Faith Temple of Angkor, who said that you were 1 year his senior and you used to run like I don't know. Do you run like a hare or like a gazelle?
Well, no one. Yes, it's true. I was an athlete all my life. I was an athlete in primary school. My
Primary school.
father was very he believed that each one of us should play a sport. And I must also say that because we didn't have toys, we well, we competed in sporting activities. So when we were on holidays, we would build our own high jump, post and bar, and see who could jump highest. And we would run, we would play outside and run. And the other thing we used to do was we would march, especially if we had gone to a parade square, if there was an event or some a military event where the soldiers had marched. We come home and then we form our own lines. There were 5 of us children and would also march. So I think that that discipline was instilled in me a long time ago. It was part of my life. I haven't known any different by virtue of the fact that I lived in the barracks, and also because I was an athlete, and an athlete, you have to be disciplined. So I was an athlete. I think I started to run for my school in class 5. Yeah. In services primary in Takrady, I don't remember that we had inter-schools competitions, but in Kotuka primary, yes, we had very tightly fought sporting competitions, football, inter-schools, and all that. So I was an athlete, and then I took it on, and I went to Wesley Girls, and I ran for my house, and I ran for the school all my years that I was there. When I did a year of high school in the US, I tried, but there were stronger athletes than me, so I never made it. I was never selected. In fact, maybe I was lazy, but that too. Yeah, so I've been and then when I went to University of Ghana, I ran for Volta Hall. I attempted the marathon in the Legon Marathon, which I failed miserable at, but I finished. And I did high jump, and then I headed the female basketball team in University of Ghana. Yes, so yes, that was what I did. I am an athlete. I still play tennis, and I ought to have been playing tennis this evening.
Yeah, I guess It's my bad. It's my bad to pull you in this evening because, as I mentioned, people are interested in getting to know more about you. They've been listening to your speeches, and people are wondering, who is that lady? Where does she come from? Where has she been? And we thought this was a good opportunity for you to have an interaction with Ghana. Talking about your days growing up as a neighbor, Tefakai, did he always show that promise of being a media person and being so good at it when you were children?
I don't think so. But I think one thing I have noticed is that those of us who grew up in the barracks in the 70s and 80s have all achieved something or done something quite one wonderful. And I think we are uniquely placed to take up leadership in all spheres in this country right now. um so no, at the time I didn't. He's a year younger than I am. Well, he says so. He's a year younger, less a month. So his birthday is June the 20th, and now mine is July the 20th. So for 1 month we are the same age. But
Okay.
and then I go on. So we have that friendship going on. Um, I did mention earlier that we didn't have toys, so we did our own toy. But Kwame Sefakai was one of the children who had lots of toys at home. So we spent a lot of time in his house playing with his toys. I think his father was an engineer or worked with the engineers department. So and with the military cars and earth moving equipment and things like that. So he had all these models of caterpillar and the caterpillar earth moving equipment, all those yellow trucks. He had all those little toys that we all always used to like to go and play with. But he had other things. He had really interesting toys. And some of them played music, like a music box and things like that. And I still
Wow.
remember some of these songs quite vividly. Mm.
I guess you owe
So,
Kwame Sefakai for playing with his toys. It's time he sends you a bill for you to pay up.
oh no, I think that we appreciate each other beyond that.
But
Yeah.
should I start spreading the rumor that probably you're considering Kwame Sefakai to be your running mate?
No. I don't think Kwame Savaka would like to be my running mate.
Yeah, I think we've heard that Adakabre Frimpong so another A's broadcast journalist, is actually going to be the vice presidential candidate for Miss Equiadonko, who will also be running. So probably it might not be out of place to start assuming that you might be considering your longtime neighbor and friend Kwame Sefakai to be your running mate in the 2020 election. But thanks for the opportunity to know about your childhood.
Mm.
Wesley Girls High School. Did you run any political office while you were a student at Wesley Girls?
Well, in Wesley Girls, I was, of course, by the time you've gone through Form 1 to Form 5, you've been, class prefect. And you see, Wesley Girls had a very interesting system. We had a school management committee. And in the school management committee, you had representatives in every class. So you had, I think it was a food representative who took care of the dining hall, or the dining hall representative. You had chapel representatives. You had, I can't remember off the top of my head. So by the time you've gone through Form 1 to Form 5, you've either been some representative on the school management committee, or you've been class prefect, or you've been one of those representatives all the time. And each term we shuffle and you select new people. So throughout, I held one position or other. I wonder if I was ever class prefect, but probably. It's only for one term and you turn. But when I got to sixth form, or when I was in Form 4, I was a dorm monitress. I was a dorm monitress for a dorm of about 24 girls. And then when I got to sixth form, I was the assistant house, what did they call them? House prefect. and I
Of which
also was in
house?
charge of Wardrobe House, and I was also in charge of ringing the bells. So
Mm-hmm.
I control the school. If I didn't ring the bell, nothing happened. And I think I got a prize for being the most responsible girl in Wesley Girls at some point. Um, I enjoyed that role very much, ringing the bell, because what it meant was, if it was chapel, for example, I've got to toll the bell till everybody goes into the chapel, and I'm the last to go into the chapel. I felt quite important, and I I had to wake up so that I could ring the rising bell at 5, tinkle the rising bell at 5:30. I think now they
Okay.
have sirens or something, which is very boring. We rang physical bells, and the bell for the chapel was told. There was a rope that was on the bell that came into my dorm, and my bed was right near the rope. So I had to reach
Okay.
out and hold the rope and tug at it. And it wasn't easy. Tug at it, and then it would ring. And I remember there was once that my watch was a bit fast. So when I told the bell, I told it was 10 minutes fast. So I thought I was on time. And then I saw the music teacher who um, played the piano in the organ in chapel, walking very briskly through we call it Atra Lane, the lane in the middle of the school, and then wagging his finger at me and looking up at me. And I was wondering what is going on. And then after that, I saw the headmistress also hurriedly, you see, I control the school, even the headmistress, also hurriedly coming through Atra Lane. And I was wondering, why are they so rushed? So I went downstairs to the chapel, and then Mr. Wijona said to me, "We need to give you a clock. Your watch is fast." And I thought, really? I didn't realize my watch was fast, but indeed it was. And that made them buy me an alarm clock. I had to wind up. Those days, you had to wind up a clock and, make sure it was on time. But those were the roles I held, yes. And I was also sports prefect. I don't know if I mentioned that. I was also one of the
Oh,
sports
okay.
prefects. Yeah.
That's good to know. I mean, it was good you had a watch which was faster, because I remember incidents in secondary school where the bell boy would just refuse to go toll the bell for lunch, and he got into all manner of trouble with his mates. So. For you to have a fast watch, that is good. I mean, if you had a slow one, you're going to get yourself into trouble with a lot of the girls and the sisters.
Yeah, well, we Wesley Girls, you wouldn't dare not ring the bell on time. No, no, you won't dare.
What would be the consequences?
I mean, in sixth form, I don't think that you would be punished in any manner, but uh, you were taught to respect. You can't do that. It just wasn't. No, we didn't have that kind of upbringing in Wesley Girls where I mean, I say it proudly that I control the school, but I better do the right thing. You wouldn't dare do it to taunt anybody or no. Yeah.
Now, let me ask about your experiences. You were in Wesley Girls, then your daddy had to go to the US, so you had to go with him
Yeah.
and into another school one more time.
Yeah.
From your experiences at Wesley Girls and what you had in the US, what were the similarities and differences?
Oh, there was a big difference. First of all, I mean, the US was not a boarding school. It was a day school. I went to school with a bus. I think what fascinated me was when my father took me to the school the first time and they got me my class, my grade I was supposed to be in, and they helped me choose the subjects I would like to do. Americans like to indoctrinate you, so you must do American culture. Would you like to do choir? Would you like, there were certain classes that were, and I'll tell you, the big difference was we didn't do mathematics. You either chose to do, and in ninth grade, you either chose to do arithmetic, algebra, or geometry. So it was a clear difference, and I chose algebra, and I'm glad I chose algebra because, I mean, O level was a lot of equations, so I got really good at that, and you had to choose between history and geography, which we did in Wesley Girls as well. But it was a day school. There was a lot more freedom because it wasn't so. And I remember when I told them about Wesley Girls, they seemed to think it was like you have to go to boarding school. They made it sound like it was slavery, but and then but they were rude. I found that the kids in school could get away with being rude to teachers. I used to be very shocked at that. But there were some of the teachers who were really, really good. And I'll tell you what, 30 years on, I went for our 30th reunion with my mates who graduated in 1986 there, which was really interesting. And I still have friends amongst them. I'm on a platform. I'm in a WhatsApp group where I can still chat with some of them. I went for the reunion, and although I was there for just a year, a lot of them remembered me. But the interesting thing was I went for a political leadership fellowship program in Boston, and I met up with my favorite teacher, who was my English teacher. And I'm still in touch with her. We actually play words with friends together. Sometimes she beats me, sometimes I beat her. So it was a very interesting experience that 1 year out.
So when you came back, did you join the same class you were with when you were at Wesley Girls before you left?
Yes,
Or they
yes,
had
yes.
left you? You joined the same class, okay.
I joined the same class. Yes, I did. Yes. And
So coming from, please proceed.
yeah, I was happy to join them. We are still together. We have a WhatsApp group. They're happy to know I'm running for president, and they are all saying, how can we help? Which is a good thing.
Good, we are going to have you as president in January 2021 because I think I watched your interview on Asasi Radio. That was yesterday. And after you had left, I monitored the comments which they were passing, and I think they were extremely impressed with the depth and the all-roundedness of your experiences and your exposure, and that to me is what we should be looking out for in leaders. I mean,
Thank you
we
very
had
much.
somebody becoming president before he could have access to so many continents which you had even before you had come out of secondary school, and that to me is a plus because then in your dealings with other leaders from other countries, you have a reference, which is going to help with your engagement with them. So you came back to Wesley Girls, you came back to the Bell, you came back to sports, and you graduated. Why did you choose to attend University of Ghana and not Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology or the University of Cape Coast?
University of Cape Coast was out because I'd been in Cape Coast for 7 years. University of Ghana, I actually filled forms for University of Ghana and University of Science and Technology. I think I got both, but I think my overprotective father, two of my brothers were in tech, University of Science and Technology, and but I think my father didn't think that, so he thought it was a den of wolves if his dear daughter would go there at that age. So little did he know that all the time that I was in Legon, I almost always, most weekends was in tech. Those were the years where tech was, as we used to say, jamming. We had all these, it was jamming. They had all these interesting jams. Unity Hall jam, Queen's Hall jam. Then we were just getting into African print. So there was the Afri-Pre jam. Yes, Afri-Pre jam. You wear your nice tie-dye shirt and rock, rock up in your nice tie-dye clothes, just to jam. So I would good thing most Fridays I didn't have lectures. So by Friday noon, I was at the STC station. 4 o'clock, I'm in tech, jamming time, and
So
I love to.
seriously, I think UST should give you a certificate, at least, if not a degree in any of the fields. They should give you one in German.
Indeed,
How does it sound like?
there are people who see
A
me
BA in
and
Germs.
say, I ought to have that because I jammed a lot in Legon too.
Yeah.
Um, uh, there are people who sometimes see me and say, ah, but I know you from tech. And I'm like, yes, but I wasn't a student in tech. I was just very regular there. Yeah, so I did that, but I went to University of Ghana. I yeah, I enjoyed the best of both worlds, I guess.
Let me put you on the spot. You
Mhm.
had experience University of Ghana. You had experience University of Science and Technology in Kumasi.
Mhm.
Again, I'll ask, what were the similarities and the differences between those two campuses?
You know, I never went to tech for lectures, so I only went for the fun. So I can't say exactly. The one thing I know was tech would dismiss. They had this thing where after the first year, we used to write our exams after the whole year. There weren't semesters. So you have 3 terms and then you have end of year exams. And a lot of people, it was a lot of pressure because then you're cramming everything in from the beginning of the year. And people used to lose it sometimes. It was a lot of pressure, and a lot of people would not pass. And at that point, they would throw some of you out. And tech had that system of throwing out people at the end of the first year. Legon didn't. So I think that I prefer Legon in that case, but it's good now that they have the semester system. Yeah.
Is that a reason why you and the PPP advocating for the abolition of the BEC to allow for fuller maturity of pupils before they are introduced to the pressures of examination as we have had for over the years?
Yeah,
Could
that's
that be
true.
your
I mean,
motivation?
even if I remember when we wrote common entrance, it was a lot of pressure. Eh? It was a lot of practice, 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 practice for several months before you went and wrote your common entrance. I think at that age, yes, indeed, you need a little maturity. You also need, continuity. You don't want to drop people out already at that stage, make them start to think they are failures already at what age 12 or no, age 15 or so. You must encourage the person to be able to learn, study, have something, a little learning at least before you assess them. And it doesn't mean that they won't be assessed. It only means that they'll have little tests, periodic tests. And that was one thing I had in my high school in the US. So you have periodic tests, and each in the semester there's mid-semester tests and there's end of semester tests, and then at the end of the year you have about 6 results, and that then gives you your cumulative score. And it also helps to assess the performance of the school itself, you know. And those are some of the standards that we should have here. Yeah.
Wow, I would have loved to talk about why you studied the program you studied at the University of Ghana, why you chose to be at Volta Hall instead of being at Legon Hall. I
Let me
have
say
all
this.
those questions.
Let me say this. I chose to be in Volta Hall because at the time, the only hall, or the two halls that the ladies were in was Volta Hall and first floor, and Saba Hall, and the first floor of Saba. Um, there were no girls in Legon Hall at the time, nor Equafo Hall. The year after us was when they put the girls in Equafo and Legon Hall. So Volta Hall was a premier ladies' hall, and not everybody wanted to be there. The other women who didn't want to be there would go to Saba Hall. Yeah, that's why I
Coming
went to
from a
Volta.
girls' school, coming from Wesley Girls High School, would you say you would have preferred to be in a mixed hall at the university instead of being in an all-female hall?
No, my sister, who is about 7 years older than I am, went to University of Ghana, and she was in Saba Hall. And this is where mentoring matters, because she mentored me. I would go and join her. Excuse me. I would go and join her. I would go and visit her on a Thursday. She would say, you're on holidays, you're at home, come over. And I would go and visit her on a Thursday and stay with her. And in those days, there were only two in a room, So I'd go and stay with them. Sometimes walk with them to classes, walk back with them to lectures, walk back with them. They would come in the evening, cook, eat. And so I knew the life, and I had spent time in Saba Hall. And sometimes I would say, I had friends. I mean, someone like Nana Oye, Lisa, Nana Oye Bampuado now, was a good friend of mine, or is a good friend of mine from Wesley Girls. But she was in Volta Hall. So I would go with her, with my sister, to visit Nana Oye in Volta Hall. And I liked the layout of Volta Hall. It looked like an old Spanish, villa kind of thing. And therefore, that's where I wanted to be. I mean, the design of Volta is no different from the design of Legon Hall, but I preferred that. Yeah.
All right. We have so much to talk about in getting to know you, but I think you have given us quite a lot of content to ponder over. Let me see if well, I'm getting views. People saying they are watching from London, but I guess they are not watching from the hospital where you were born. And there's a question asked from Jojo Aqua Muzanu. Jojo is asking, so how is the party going to financially assist the presidential campaign? And I'm saying that, Jojo, we are not talking about the campaign now. We're talking about Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku, the flag bearer of the Progressive People's Party. Come Saturday, when the Progressive People's Party launches its policy directives, I am sure that we can pick up the discussion on the party. But for now, we want to know about Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku. It's been exciting getting to know that by the time she came out of secondary school, she had actually experienced three continents out of 5, 6, and that is good exposure. So after you had grown up, have you been to Australia?
Not yet.
Have you been to
I
Asia?
When I was working in Tanzania, I thought I might go to Australia, even though the people I worked with from there left a bad taste in my mouth. But I did think that I might go to Australia, and who knows? Maybe one day tennis will take me there. I love tennis, so the Australian Open is not one Grand Slam tournament that I look forward to going to. I mean, I've done the U.S. Open, but I'd like to do Wimbledon and maybe the French Open. The French Open and the Australian Open, you know. But for the reason of visiting Australia, I'll maybe one day go and watch tennis. God grants me long life and health.
God grant you long life and health because Ghana needs you. Ghana needs you to inspire a lot of people out of fear. Ghana needs you to provide that kind of leadership which is not isolated from the realities on the ground. The leadership which experiences how it feels to be a Ghanaian in different towns and different places. And I think that kind of exposure will be good and inspire this generation, the next generation of Ghanaians. We pray and hope that we'll get the opportunity to talk to you again, as a lot of questions are pouring in now. People would want to know about you. And if you have the time, your media schedule allows you, I'm sure this week we'll be able to have some
If
more
you have to
discussions.
go, fine. But if you like, we can squeeze in 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Well, then let's do 10 minutes. Let's do 10 minutes about your experience with this Jome. I hope I get the pronunciation right. I
Mm.
never got around to buying my ever Bible.
University, I thought we were going chronologically, or no?
Well, let's do it. Let's do the university thing. Let's do the university. Why did you decide to study the program you studied? Why didn't you? You said you loved algebra. So why did you decide to learn Swahili and become an East African when you should be learning Hausa to be a West African?
I would have loved to do math in now that since you ask. When I was in Wesley Girls, I didn't like science. I didn't understand chemistry at all. And up till today, my son loves chemistry, and I say to him, Kweja, I don't know how you understand you like chemistry, but so I hated chemistry. I loved biology because I could draw, and if you ask me to draw a heart, I'll probably open 2 pages and draw it all over, with the ventricles and all that. I love that. And I liked physics because it involved a bit of math. But chemistry was too abstract. Couldn't grasp it. So I think I closed my mind to it. So I didn't do science, but I had to do general science at O level. So I did arts. Now, in those days, when you did arts, you couldn't do additional maths. And therefore, I think your mic is off, Paul. But so I couldn't do additional maths, but I would have loved to. And I just wasn't allowed. I think the option I could have done was when I went into sixth form, I should have studied to write additional maths at O level additional maths, but I didn't think about it. And therefore I couldn't go and do math in University of Ghana. I mean, I did get a 1 in general maths. I loved maths that much. Then in those days they used to grade 1 to 9. So if I say I got a 1, it was, so after that, when I did arts, I wanted to do languages. My A-level scores were not the most fantastic, as you can imagine. So I was taken in at the second stage of they would take a first batch of people into University of Ghana, then they would do like a mop-up and take another group of people. So I was in the second batch. And when I went and looked on the thing, what I wanted to do was French and Spanish. But when I went, I looked, and for some reason, instead of Spanish, I'd been given Swahili. And I was like, interesting. Well, let me go and find out what it's all about. I asked them, do I need to learn a new set of alphabets? They said no. And I think, what was the other question I asked? Do they write backwards? They said no. And I said, well, do it. Those were my two concerns about the language. Because Arabic, they write backwards, right? And they write,
Yeah.
and I wasn't prepared to go and start learning all that scribbling. And Russian, they don't use, they use other, and all that. So I was ready. I just said, okay, let me go and explore. The interesting thing was one of my lecturers was also a Dr. Amidu, brother of the special prosecutor. Same
Oh.
attitude. Difficult. Difficult, stern, very stern. I mean, paid attention to detail, like, I mean, oh my goodness. But he was nice to be taught by. Yeah. And I think he still heads, oh well, I don't know where he is now, but at some point he was heading a Swahili department of some university in Norway. Yeah. And I'm glad I did, because I've made some lifelong friends from my year abroad when I was in Tanzania. So I went on year abroad to Tanzania. And I made some of the best friends that I still keep today. One of them, when I went back because of Swahili, I went back to work in Tanzania I got introduced to a Ghanaian gentleman who was in Cape Coast, who was in St. Augustine's and University of Ghana with me, and they've been married for 20 years. You see, so there was a whole God ordained purpose to my studying Swahili.
These Ogasco boys are they trouble.
Oh, not Joe. Joe is a fine gentleman, or has become a fine gentleman, I must say.
Nice
Uh,
one, nice one, nice one,
he,
nice one.
he actually currently heads Deloitte in East Africa. Yeah, so those are some of the benefits he got from my studying Swahili. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. It's good to hear all this narration. And so, let me ask, if the whole of Africa is to choose a common language to study, I know that in Western Africa we have so many languages, but I'm told the one which cuts across a lot of borders is Hausa.
And
Hausa is spoken in Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso. Ever is spoken in Benin, Togo, and Ghana, and Swahili and other languages are spoken in Eastern Africa. You have, I don't know if Northern Africa speaks Arabic. So given the chance to make an input, which one of them do you think would be easiest to convert into an African language for all Africans?
I think it would be Swahili, because Swahili is spoken in Kenya, Tanzania, parts of Uganda, parts of Zambia, Rwanda, Burundi, or variations of it. So, and is it also in Malawi? I'm not sure. But there are variations of it. And when the South Africans speak Setswana, is it Setswana or Sutu? One of them, you can actually pick out Swahili words. So who knows? I don't know that we can spread it. And it's an easy language to learn. So, but it's going to be very difficult. I mean, asking certain tribes, there are certain tribes who just close their minds to other people's languages. I'm not saying anything, but so, and think it's completely impossible to learn something new. But if you start to teach it, I mean, Tanzania, for example, their national language is Swahili. And when I went to work there for Ashanti Goldfields, it was very difficult to get them to write English, because they would teach in Swahili until I think age 12, year 6 or so, before they introduced English. But the language is so well researched and so developed that they can afford to do that.
Okay.
They can afford to do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
We have just 3 minutes to the end of this program for today, and I guess we're going to have the opportunity to talk to you again in the other days whilst we wait for your party, the Progressive People's Party, to drop its policy directives, its policy advice, and share with Ghanaians, so we can then move to talk about policy. But I think this week we are talking about you, Brigette Dzogbenuku. I asked about the meaning of Dzogbenuku. I didn't ask about Brigette. What does Brigette mean?
Brigette actually means strength.
Strength.
Brigette, strength, yes. Yeah.
Does it have
So
anything to do with
I'm a strong,
Brigadier?
resilience tree in the desert.
It shows. There's everything in the name. It shows.
Yes.
Anyway,
But I'll tell you why. My father was starstruck. My sister is Marilyn, as in Monroe. I'm Brigitte, as in Bardot. These were stars of the
Those were the
the
names of the era.
Yes, so yeah, but he chose a good name, I guess.
Yeah, because the name is a sweet one Thank you so much, Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku, for this session. I think it has been quite an eye opener getting to know who you are. I love the German part. Moving from the University
I
of
dance,
Ghana.
oh, I like dancing. Oh. You know, when I was doing
Man must live. Man
when
must
I was
live
doing
this life.
activity on Saturday, they asked me which song I wanted, and it was a younger person who was asking me. So I said, okay, when I'm coming on stage, play me Camido's TikTok, and she didn't know it. And I said, "Yeah." And I said, I'm the older one. How come you don't know the song? you know?
You need to have the German spirit to be able to decipher some codes. So
Yeah,
you just have to forgive us in this generation if we don't get the opportunity. We don't have the inkling to German so much. But I think that is good to notice that you have a life, you enjoy your life, and you have this positive energy around you to share with people who come close to you. Going forward, I'm sure we'll have opportunity to talk about more political stuff. But now we just want to keep it light and let Ghanaians get to know who you are. I hope your schedule in the days ahead will still allow for us to meet at 8 p.m. and get to know more about you. My viewers and myself are grateful, Brigette, for making the
thank
time
you very much. Thank you.
have this chat
Hmm.
with us. Before we go, I just want to play one of your sound bites. This sound bite about
Oh my goodness.
fear.
Well, I'll say goodbye. Like I said, I don't like watching movies. So at
And
this point, I'll say,
you have to be around to listen to this before we sign off. We have a couple of seconds. Be around and listen to this before we sign off.
We cannot continue to live in that fear, bitterness, and anger anymore. We must learn to forgive and move on, lest we rob ourselves of our own lives, joy, and growth. Unfortunately, the leadership we have had over the past years are still living in that pathology and fear, and continue to infect us with that stagnation. They govern mainly for the fear of the opposition or for fear of going into opposition. In effect, we are ruled by fear.
On that note, thank you so much for being
thank
our guest. Have a good
thank you
night.
very much. Good night.
Good night. All right. It's been a long night getting to know Miss Brigette Dzogbenuku. Thanks for staying by. Enjoy your night. Bye bye.
There is a saying, though, that if you want something different, you must do something different. For those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, for all the women and for the youth, we all want something different from the current. We therefore need to do something different from what we have done since 1992.